What's going on, Falcon fan? This your boy Ricondo come back at you with another video, and we're gonna talk about cut day and the 53-man initial roster. And I said initial roster because a lot of NFL players, that was in training camp got cut today. So, they have to come up with their 53, their first 53, but this is initial roster and scouring, the release guys that's out there from all the 31 teams. The Falcons could definitely make some changes. So this is the initial roster, but these guys that they did pick, let them know what they thought about them and got those guys into the organization. So, hats off to those guys. And if they do get cut, more likely some of those guys probably end up on the practice squad. So that's where we're at. You like to see the Atlanta Falcons um got to make some changes and things like that. We did get some unfortunate news about Caleb McGarry. I think we all kind of figured that was going to be the case, but you know, it's just the way it is. Some every time football, only problem with it, it didn't happen in the game. It actually happened, in practice, and so everybody's saying about preseason, not trying to get hurt and stuff like that. Sometimes it just does not matter. You know, you just have to deal with what comes with it. Um, the concern with the offensive line is still a concern. We'll talk about a move the Falcons did make today, and acquiring another offensive lineman, um, which really means why you only see 52 men on this roster because of that trade that they made that haven't got um, pushed through yet. So that'll be the 53 man, and I'm talking about Michael Gerald. So we'll talk about him as well. But Atlanta Falcons, we're gonna go ahead and get my first reaction on the 53 man roster. How wrong I was on a lot of the players that actually made this team. I'm not surprised. I'm kind of surprised on some aspects. We'll talk about that. But other than that, let's get into this 53 man roster, guys. Let's go head for it. So the initial roster, and I like to say initial roster because this might not be the team that goes into the week one against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? That's just the fact of it because, like I said, we got to look at the waiver wire and see if the Atlanta Falcons decide to pick up somebody else that they might have their eye on that actually got released from another team. So the Atlanta Falcons kept two quarterbacks, Michael Penix Jr. and Kirk Cousins. I got that right. Okay. Running backs, they kept three running backs, but John Robinson, Tyler Algier, and Nathan Carter. I got that right as well. Right. So they decided to keep seven receivers. I had six, but they kept Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray Ray McLeod, Cordell Hodge, Casey Washington, David Seals. It's a guy I did not have added because I don't think I was going to keep six. And then Jamal Agnew. And the reason why I had Jamal Agnew, I know he did not practice a lot this training camp. However, Jamal Agnew was a Pro Bowler returner, you know, with the Detroit Lions. So if they need to fix that, people kind of forget about special teams. And I know when you're taking up a roster spot and like, well, we could have found somebody else to do it, but he's probably what's going on, T Terry. He's probably one of the best returners, in the league if he's healthy. So that's why Jamal Agnew made this team. The word on he did come back to practice before training camp ended. So that's why he made the team seem like he's healthy. So Jamal Agnew um, is the sixth guy that I had, but David Seals is a guy that he kind of the tea leaves on the wall when he did not practice. I mean, did not play in that last preseason game, and it kind of took him out in that second preseason game as well. So looked like David Seals kind of had made a name for himself. So there you have it, seven receivers, guys. So that brings you to a total right now of 12 bodies, right? Two quarterbacks, three running backs, and seven receivers. So that's 12 bodies already. They decided to keep four tight ends. I only had three, right? They decided to keep Felipe Franks, who's another special team guy. That if you look at what he did with the Carolina Panthers last year, he led the team in tackles and with special teams. So that versatility, being able to play special teams because you got to have bodies there. So Felipe Frank come in. Tegan, with the guy that I had was that third tight end, but keeping four tight ends on the roster. There you have it, and that brings your total to 16 guys. They decided to keep 8 offensive linemen. Nine, if you count Gerald that they's going to bring in as a that they just picked up in a trade, giving away that 7th round pick in 2027. But they kept Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, Ryan Newsel, Christian Lindstrom, Elijah Wilkinson, which is going to be your, starting five right now. They decided to keep the rookie Jack Nelson, who had a terrible preseason, but he's a 7th round pick, so that I guess they see some potential there to be able to grow. Javon Gwynn, a guy that played center and play some guard, and then Kyle Hinton is another guy that can play, multiple spots on the offensive line. So, and then you bring in, like I said, offensive tackle Michael Gerald from the Seattle Seahawks for a conditional 7th round pick in 2027. That brings the total to 9 offensive linemen. So that's your 16 plus your 9. That's 25 guys on offense, guys. 25 guys on offense. Right. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. So you're looking at defensive side of the ball. This was interesting, right? They decided to keep 5 offensive linemen, 6 if you count Taquan Graham, because he's on. They put him on IR, which he can't come back until at least 4 weeks now. So he's designated to return, but he's on IR. So they kind of kept 6 linemen, but the 5 that's here that's going to be active, hopefully on week 1, will be David Amiyata, Brandon Dorless, Lakel London, Rook Roro, and Zach Harrison. The other guy that I had was Kentavious Street. That he did not make it, and guys remember Morgan Fox got released a couple of days ago. So those were the guys that I had. I had Kentavious Street and Morgan Fox making it, but they decided to keep those guys. That would have put us to 8 defensive linemen, but they decided to keep 5. So with Taquan Graham coming back, looking at that, they talked about having a fresh group of bodies guys coming in, but that's not enough, right? To have a fresh. So somebody's going to be double dipping with David Amiyata, Brandon Dorless, Lakel London, Rook Roro, and Zach Harrison. All right. Um, that brings your total to 31, right? When you add Taquan Graham in. So that's the 31. But for these purposes, it's going to be 30 because Taquan Graham is considered to be on IR. So he does not count towards the roster right now. Right. You look at Ed rushers, Armor Evacati, Leonard Floyd, Jalen Walker, James Pierce, Braylon Trice, and D'Angelo Malone. Yes, Khalid Kareem was beat out by D'Angelo Malone. And like I talked about with Jamal Agnew and I talked about with Felipe Franks, D'Angelo Malone is a real, high energy guy for a special team. So that's why he made the list. And so D'Angelo Malone being that 6 outside linebacker. T. Terry says the Falcons were going to keep Kurt anyway. Yeah, they're going to keep Kurt. Most definitely. All right, so look at inside linebackers: Caden Ellis, Devon Diablo, J.D. Bertrand, Josh Woods. I had Troy Anderson. Troy Anderson is on the PUP list, so he does not count towards this initial 53-man roster. So they brought in Josh Woods, who really flashed in that first preseason game. Kind of was quiet after that. Probably didn't get as much run that we would like, but he's the guy that's gonna come in and fill a role. We like the way he was getting downhill, like he was making plays. So Josh Woods filling in for Troy Anderson until he comes off the PUP list. But there you have it. 4 linebackers, which bring us to total to 34. 7 cornerbacks, guys. 7 cornerbacks. AJ Terrell, Mike Hughes, Billy Bowman, Clark Phillips III, who actually made it. Clark Phillips, even though he was injured, but he's actually made the team. Mike Ford, another special teams guy. Talked about that. And Natron Brooks, definitely Natron Brooks deserved to be on this roster. So that's your 7 cornerbacks. Clark Phillips III, that's the guy I did not have making the roster because of the injury. And I thought they was going to only keep 6 cornerbacks, but they decided to keep 7, which kind of tells you something because they only kept 3 safeties. And those 7s bring you up to 41. I'm right, yeah, 41. But bring you to 41. So looking at that, I'm off somewhere because I only got one more position left after the safeties. But those 7 cornerbacks: Clark Phillips III, D. Alford, Mike Ford, Natron Brooks. Billy Bowman can actually play safety, right? So they might utilize him in some safety because they only kept 3 safeties. Jordan Fuller will actually release. So they got Jesse Bates, Xavier Watts, and DeMarco Helms. Those are your 3 safeties. Of course, your 3 specialists are going to be Younghoe Koo, Bradley Pinion, Leon McCullum, right? So which brings us to 52 guys. So when I talked about it, 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 7 receivers, 4 tight ends, 8 offensive linemen, 5 defensive linemen, 6 edge rushers, 4 linebackers, 7 cornerbacks, 3 safeties, and 3 specialists. So there you have it, guys. Your initial 53-man roster. You do have guys on the injury reserve. Storm Norton being one of the guys that's designated to return back. They reported he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. If you take the 2 weeks that he's having, he could be back after the bye against the Buffalo Bills or after that 49ers game. So somewhere around that time frame, if that timeline is right. And then of course Taquan Graham is the other guy that they had on injury reserve that 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 designated comeback. Got to be out the first 4 games. Depending on his injury, how severe it is, he will be back as well. We did talk about Caleb McGarry, who's going to be out the entire season. So he's not designated to return. He's been put on IR and he's out for the season. So looking at the offensive line, still kind of worried about the depth there. I don't know how much, confidence that the Atlanta Falcons got in Elijah Wilkinson being the starter there. Mike Gerald is just a depth piece. I don't think he was brought here to be a starter as well. So I still believe that Atlanta Falcons could make, some moves off the waiver wire and grab another offensive tackle because there was a lot of teams that let go some veteran offensive linemen out there that might be suited, to fill some of this depth role at offensive tackle. So we know Storm Norton is coming back, but we'll just depends on how confident the Atlanta Falcons in Elijah Wilkinson and bringing in Michael Gerald and see if that's going to be enough good for the depth from a depth standpoint, right? Just don't know. So we just have to find out about those guys. But looking at the initial 53-man roster, adding in Gerald, I'm cool with it. I didn't have no issues with it. Like I was right on it when looking at the quarterbacks, running backs, the receivers. Like I said, you kind of look at who they played and who they did not play, throughout preseason. Keeping 4 tight ends, don't have a problem with that as well because you got to utilize free agency. And if you don't, not free agency, special teams, you got to look at special teams. Special teams are really important. So that's a big deal. The 5 defensive linemen is interesting. So they're going to utilize some of their pass rushers to be able to, kind of limit some of that. So guys like Ebiketie, Leonard Floyd is going to be in that 4-man front, along with Jalen Walker, James Pierce. So we'll definitely see how that's going to look, in week 1. The 7 cornerbacks, like I said, no surprises there for me. Not even Clark Phillips. Like I said, he was in the running until he got hurt. Just thought if it was a numbers game, they was going to only keep 6. I thought he would have been the odd man out. But there you have it, guys. I have no issue at all with the 53-man initial roster. Now let's see how many changes they make between now and week 1 with the waivers out there. We'll see if they feel like they're comfortable at offensive line. If any other positions, if they feel real comfortable at the linebacker position, right? So we'll definitely get to see that. Now, when we're looking at the 16-man practice squad, right? So let's go to some surprise cuts first. So the question is there any surprise cuts? When you're looking at the cuts, and let's go over the names first before we talk about any surprises. CJ Henderson, I think he just came to the team too late. but the word on the street, they think about bringing him back on the practice squad. Easton Stick, I was not surprised about that because of the numbers game, and I feel like that's another guy they can bring back on the practice squad. Um, Simeon Barrow is a guy that when you look at a guy like him, um, he showed a lot of stuff, especially in that last preseason game. But at the same time, number game, the other guy I anticipate come back on the practice squad. Jashawn Corbin, just the number of games. Carlos Washington could not stay healthy. Ronnie Harrison is another guy that was able to play linebacker and safety that definitely could come back. Kobe Bryant, because of the injuries that he sustained, just didn't show enough on film to be able to make the squad. Lenny Craig is another guy that you kind of figured that was going to get cut. They like Young Wei Koo, but a guy they can bring back, and they can actually bring him back as an international guy and don't count towards the roster or the practice squad. Right? Jordan Fuller. Now that's your surprise cut, in my opinion. I thought he's another guy. So between him and Morgan Fox, two guys they brought in the free agency, did not make the 53-man roster. It was really interesting. Now Jordan Fuller could be brought back. I think he's still eligible to come back on the practice squad. Khalid Kareem, not too much surprise there, but he was cut instead of D'Angelo Malone, so that is interesting. But I think D'Angelo Malone gives more versatility on preseason. So Brandon Parker, no. Contavious Street is interesting. He's a veteran, side veteran. So the only veteran in that room right now is David Amanyata, right? It's a young defensive front that Atlanta Falcons is going to be running out there on September 7th. Cornerback Keith Taylor, no surprise. Henry Black, no surprise. Chris Blair, really not a surprise because the number game, a guy that I expect to be back on the practice squad unless he get poached by another team. On wide receiver, Dylan Drummond, I expect him to be back. Offensive lineman, Joshua Gray, no surprise. Dante Manning, no surprise. Nick Nash, guy I expect to be back on the practice squad. Joshua Simmons, another guy probably on the practice squad. And then offensive lineman, Jordan Williams. All right. Of course, you know about the 12 guys that they released earlier in the week. Ben DiNucci, Jesse Matthews, Quincy Skinner, Matthew Cindric, Elijah Dotson, tight end Nicolia Clinic, edge Ronnie Perkins, like I said, Morgan Fox, Nick Cubits, linebacker Caleb Johnson, cornerback Lamar Jackson, and safety Josh Thompson. Right. So only surprise cut out of those guys really is probably Jordan Fuller. I'm sure they was going to keep four safeties. They decided to keep 7 cornerbacks. But other guys that people might be, looking at, you look at a guy like Chris Blair, looking at Khalid Kareem, maybe, just maybe, I could see where you could make some changes there. But at the same time, the guys that they did pick, I don't think they stole somebody spot here on this team. So there you have it. Those are my surprise cuts. Definitely want to hear what you guys think about surprise cuts that Atlanta Falcons decided to make. All right. So let's count the 16-man practice squad here. All right. So you got CJ Henderson is 1, Easton Stick is 2, Simon Barrow is 3. Carlos Washington is 4 if he's healthy. Kobe Bryant is 5. Khalid Kareem is 6. Chris Blair, Dylan Drummond, and Nick Nash would be 9. Tight end Joshua Simmons would be 10. And then these veteran guys, so veterans, guys like Contavious Street, Jordan Fuller would be 11 and 12. You could bring Ronnie Harrison back. 13. Jordan Williams would be 14. Okay. Nate Kubitz could be 15. And then linebacker Caleb Johnson could be number 16. So those are some of the guys. Now the Atlanta Falcons might decide to pick somebody else up as well. Um, and like I said, some of these guys that's on the initial 53-man roster probably is going to get cut anyway if the Atlanta Falcons decide to take somebody else off the waiver wire. You got to wait a couple of days. Now the guys that was released because they were free agents, they can get picked up right away. The guys that was cut, you got to wait the 2 days. The wait to make the waiver wire. So that's the way it works. So see what try to look around the league. I know it's been a lot of announcement offensive tackles being being released, and I see the Falcons Twitter going in on all of them. Like here we go, here we go, here we go, trying to find somebody that could come in and be a suitable replacement for Caleb McGarry. But it looks like Elijah Wilkins gonna get the first nod. Let's see how he looks. In my opinion, when we're talking about Caleb McGarry, the biggest thing that's going to be missed is in the running game. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see how the Atlanta Falcons continue to be dominant running team because of the the great that's what Caleb McGarry is really good at. He was really good at run blocking. And if you look at Tyler Algier and B. John Robinson running behind that right side of the offensive line, it always, produced some good numbers. So that's the interesting thing to see, to find out about the Caleb McGarry injury. All right. Don't know if, Elijah Wilkins is the answer there. I really don't think Michael, Gerald is going to be the right answer there as well. So I still think the Atlanta Falcons still need to be scouring the release rosters, players off the teams, and seeing if they can get somebody, right? Or they need to still be considering a trade to try to find a suitable starter for Caleb McGarry, right? You don't want to have that as an issue, the whole season. Now, Storm Norton, guy who played solid for us, last in spot minutes, spot play for the Atlanta Falcons over the last 2 seasons. Hopefully, he can come back and fill that role for us, but you just don't know. Yeah, T. Terry said the Falcons just gave McGarry. Yeah, he just got a 2-year extension and he's out one of those seasons. So, I mean, that's how it works sometimes. I mean, technically, he that 2-year contract don't take place to start next year, so he technically he here for another 2 seasons. As long as he come back healthy, I think Atlanta Falcons will be good there at the right spot. But for this year, 2025 season, he's not going to be there, so they gotta find a replacement. So that is a great point about you know Caleb McGarry just got the bag. You hate to see that. You could look at the Chargers offensive lineman as well. He got a multi-year deal, and he got hurt as well. So sometimes it's just how it happens, man. And unfortunately, it happened in practice. So so much for not playing the preseason games and trying to keep your guys safe, and then a guy take a sustained injury in practice. But that's football, man. And when you start pulling the onion back just a little bit, you realize how much depth the Atlanta Falcons do not have, right? Especially the offensive line, because we're so concerned now, especially the way the offensive line, the second team offensive line played in the preseason. It was not good. So Raheem Morris could get a coach speech and say he's confident in his guys, but we all seen what we've seen, and sometimes these guys, and they know more football than we ever know, right? They coaches, they've been in this thing forever, but we know what we see too. And you think that you kind of fool our eyes, like we don't see what we see, on the field, and then you try to give us some how Prime, like Coach Prime said, some bull junk. You try to throw out that bull junk, man. Try to make it seem like we don't see what we see. We saw the offensive line didn't perform well in in preseason. So, to try to come out and say you're confident in the offensive line is just not real. Who you fooling, right? Now that was a unit, right? Now, when somebody go down, you're gonna replace like one guy, maybe two. So you're not replacing the whole offensive line. So you just plugging and play one guy, but still, some of those guys did not shine. Like Jack Nelson, you know, he's lucky he's a rookie and he's a draft pick because he did not play well at all, right? So we got to be able to looking at that. And sometimes offensive linemen, besides offensive linemen, um, cornerback, quarterback, those are some of the hardest positions to play. Offensive line, cornerback, and quarterback, probably the three most hardest positions to play in the NFL, in my opinion. This is you got to think about playing quarterback. You got to know everything. You got to know the whole offense. You got to know the whole defense. Then you got somebody running around in your face, trying to destroy you. You know, while you trying to look down the barrel and complete the pass. So, got to be just just tough, right? Looking offensive line, guys running at you full speed, trying to push you out the way. Kind of now, offensive line can't get nasty. You go back to our nasty offensive line with Harvey Dahl and those guys, right? But you know, it's tough to be offensive line. But then, of course, cornerback, you're on an island by yourself, man, against some of the best athletes in the world. So, in my opinion, those are three hardest positions to play. And offensive line is definitely hard. And that's why we so concerned about Elijah Wilkinson, right? Think he's a better guard than maybe a tackle, but we're going to find out, right? They can put Son Reddick over there in that first game and see can he try to wreak havoc on that blind side of Michael Penix. So we'll just see, right? But that's that's gonna be something that we definitely gonna be. Let's just say let's hope we don't be concerned about it throughout the whole season, right? Let's just hope that's not the case. All right, guys. So give me your thoughts on the Atlanta Falcons 53-man initial roster. Um, and we'll see, if they make any changes. Right, they got time to go out and try to find out if um, they can find somebody that's going to make this team better than what it was. Dartmar says McGarry is a great opportunity for a prospect to find success. Right, and it's always going to be the next man up mentality. You're 100% correct. All right, the question is Elijah Wilkins going to be that guy? Been in the league 8 years, so he's a veteran. So it's not like we put a novice in there, somebody that's brand new. So he has the experience, and he don't seen a lot of good defensive linemen, coming at him. So we'll see if he can hold up. That's just the way it's going to work. What's going on, Millie Mills? What's going on, Millie Mills? Guys, before I get out of here, I do want to say this because I should have led off with this, but I didn't. This is a tough day for a lot of these young guys, man. They put their blood, sweat, and tears all through high school. I mean, this is the interesting thing about the NFL, and I talked to some other young guys about this, and the fact that a lot of these guys was like all Americans, like in high school, right? They was like 4 or 5 stars going into college, but then they can't even make an NFL roster. It just let you know how good NFL is, right? Um, and so it's a tough day for some of these guys. Some of these guys, the journey is over probably for good, but a lot of these guys gonna get opportunities, right? We just talked about some of these guys going to be on the 16-man practice squad, but it's 32 other teams, so that's why the opportunities you get every time you go out on the field and you're able to put stuff on tape, you need to be able to show what you're capable of doing, right? Um, and it's so many stories chronicle about guys not first round picks, guys getting drafted late, guys, you know, not hitting their stride to like their third or fourth year in the league and they start to pick up. So it's so many stories about these young men. So if you got a dream, you just got to work at it. But it's just a tough day around the league, man. You know, they call it Coaches Day, Black Monday, right? when all the coaches get fired. But they need to make a name for this day because this is a sad day. Going from 90, and now they do it in a way that everybody get cut at the same time. Remember, they used to do it. They used to do cuts after the third preseason game, right? And then going to their fourth preseason game. But now they just wait after the last preseason game, and they do just like a massive cut. So I mean, going down from 90 to 53, it's a lot of guys that you know seeing their dreams come to a pause, right? I'm not saying come to an end, but just come to a pause, and then hopefully they get another opportunity. Now, it's a good thing is other leagues out there that they can go in and brush up on their the game and be able to come back, right? The UFL is out there, the Canadian League is out there. Go out there. Look at a guy like D. Alford. That's where he came from, the Canadian League, right? So it's always opportunities to go out somewhere and work on your game and get better. But yeah, this is a sad day for a lot of these guys. Realizing that brotherhood that they built since the spring is coming to an end, right? And believe me, those guys, those 53 guys, it's going to be different for them as well because after that first day, all those other guys are gone. It looked slim in the locker room, just looked slim all the way around. And like they realized that, the group that they had with that 90-man roster, a lot of their brothers going to be gone. So just wanted to throw that out and shout out all those guys. Hopefully they get another opportunity to, pursue their dreams. All right. Because, NFL is not long anyway for a lot of guys. You look at guys that's played a long time. You look at a guy like Tom Brady, played over 20 years. Even a guy like Kirk Cousins, who's going into his 14th season, right? That's a lot. So that's good. I seen a post where they was just posting Thomas Dimitrov draft, his draft throughout the years, right? And since 2008, his first draft, he drafted Matt Ryan. It really not a lot of players left that he drafted in the NFL, not just on the Falcons, in the NFL. That's why it's amazing, right? It's not for long, man. And he's like, wow, Jake Matthews is still here, right? Grady Jarrett is still here. But if you look around the league, man, it's not that many. It's just amazing that, from 2008 to 2000 and what was it, 19? 2021, 20. Whenever, Terry Fontenot came in, 12 years of draft picks. And there's like 2 or maybe 3 guys still in the league from those picks, right? So you don't stay in NFL long. So that's just look at it that way, right? Not saying Thomas Mitchell had a bad draft. It just means that those guys, he wasn't able to, have a long career. And because a lot of people say what the time frame is 3 to 4 seasons for a lot of these players, and then they're out, right? Because you got to know it's a new crop coming in every year trying to take your job. So that's the way you got to look at it, and that's the way it is. Billy Mill said, I feel as though a bunch of these guys, Raheem Blight, is what is going to let go. I'm ready for week 1. I can't get here fat. Yeah, you can't, man. I can't wait. But guess what? Football this weekend. So we gotta. That's the good thing about it. We get to watch some football this weekend, man. That's what I like about it. That's what I like about it. What's up, Ricky Gaines? I like about the fact that no more weekends without football until like February. So let's do this. That's what I can't wait, man. I know you guys excited. I'm excited. So the season is here. I do not think that this is going to be the 53-man roster that the Atlanta Falcons have on the September 7th. And a lot of those guys that they bring back on the practice squad probably going to be active on that game day. So Atlanta Falcons utilize that practice squad like another part of the team. So that's why we look at some of these cuts. The guys that are going to bring back, they're going to participate, right? And believe it or not, I was looking at the salaries. It's not the millions and stuff like that, man, but The lowest salary that I saw was like 12,000 a week. That's not bad for a practice squad spot. Get $12,000 a week is not bad at all for being on a practice squad. So you know, you can't beat that. And then the highest amount is like 21 for the veterans. So between $12,000 and $21,000 a week is not bad at all. So so don't feel too bad about the guys that get back up on the practice squad because a lot of us would love to get $12,000 a week. Ricky Gang says, I always miss the start, but what's up? What's up, man? Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I had to get it because actually, guys, I got a fantasy drafted tonight, so I had to come on a little early if I can get out of here and get ready for the draft so I can win. So get my team right. The saddest part about it, the guys that I play with, they always try to stop me from picking Falcons. So I have to try to sneak and pick Atlanta Falcons because we do the the salary cap draft, so they try to make you bid too high for you players and stuff like that. So the last couple of years, I have not been able to grab a Falcon and and rock with those guys. Now, I used to when I used to play, I used to get Julio and Matt all the time, and that duo used to give me. I think I won a couple of years in a row with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. So that duo was outstanding. Ricardo, you drafting Mike Penny. Look, man, if I can get him, like I said, and there's some other Falcon fans in the draft as well, so they might try to get him because they know he gonna do some good things this year. If I can get him, I will. Yes, yes, yes. The truth be told, though, the last couple of seasons I've been rolling with Patrick Mahomes, and until last year, because last year he did not have a good year, toward fantasy. I mean, they only lost one game in the regular season, but his stats was not good. So um, I did not win with Patrick Mahomes last year. So, but usually Patrick Mahomes used to, he used to put up numbers every week. So, um, but if I can get MP, you know, Michael Penix, I'm definitely going to go there. I know I'm thinking about it. Yep, let's go, man. Let's get excited. So, guys, let's get ready. Let's see what other moves the Atlanta Falcons make. I definitely want to hear your thoughts on the 53-man roster, the initial 53-man roster. I love to say that because I think they're gonna make some changes. That 7 cornerbacks, we'll see if that sticks. The 4 tight ends, we'll see if that stick. Just don't know. Because I think they might add another offensive lineman. Just got a feeling, right? I don't know if they really good with Jack Nelson, Kyle Hinton. I don't know if they're good with those guys. So we'll just have to see. We'll see, man. Billy Mill says, so do you double running back or double wide receivers with your first 2 picks? So that's in the snake draft, right? It's you just go down the list, right? That's how you do a snake draft. In the auction draft, the one that I participate in, is that you get $260, right? And then you bid on the player. So you put a player out there and everybody bid on them, and whoever wins the bid gets that player, right? It kind of make it exciting because if you bid too much, you got $260. Like if you bid $100 on one player, you're gonna be hurt because you got to fill your whole roster up. And then what happens is you got to wait and let the computer draft the rest of the guys because you don't have enough money to bid. Because people, like, if you got $10 left, somebody can bid $2, and you might not be able to bid because still got 10 roster spots to fill. So you can only bid $1, right? So it's kind of exciting that way. It's a method to it. Um, a lot of guys go out and they get, so, like, of course, guys are gonna be at the top of the list. But John is gonna be probably the number one guy. Him, Saquon Barkley, Justin Jefferson, right? Those guys are always at the top of the heap, right? So people gonna be high for those guys. That's the way they usually do it. but it's a lot of other guys out there you can definitely look at to be successful. Some sleepers, you know, you got guys like St. Brown from the Rams, you got Puka Nakua, those guys, they consistent, right? Um, so still be able to get some good players, but at the same time, you might not get the guys you want. So that's just how it goes. And I definitely guys let you know. I might come back out here and give you my fantasy team, and you guys give me an idea um how good I did based off tonight's draft. So Ms. Will say, so do you spend your whole 260 or do you save it for waivers? So the last couple of years, right? You know, because if usually people try to hold their money, right, and try to get the guys at the end. But if you hold it too long, you're really gonna start losing off on some really good players. So you got to be strategic. So you need two running backs, you need two receivers, and because that's really where your points gonna come from, your receivers and your running backs, right? You're gonna have a flex guy. You need a backup quarterback. You really don't need a backup quarterback though for your buy. So if you get a good quarterback, you only need that backup quarterback just for the bye week, right? So you make sure that you can kind of put a quarterback in so you won't lose the week because you had to put your quarterback, your starting quarterback on the bye, right? But you got to have, a good flex, um, a good receiver, two good receivers, and two good running backs. If you can do that, you might have a good chance to win. And that's the way you got to do it. But sometimes when you talk about the 260, like like we had one guy, he still had $100 left over at the end because he was trying to hold his money, but because he wasn't bidding on nothing, and all the other players was going out. So you got to be smart about it. You know, and then and if you know how the draft works, they have how much the guy should cost, right? And you got to be like, well, do I want to pay that much or do I want to limit something, right? So between me and you, right, what I usually do is I put a guy out there that I know everybody gonna bid on, so they can start spending their money. Guy that I want, but I know I ain't gonna get him because I'm not willing to pay that much for him. So I put him out there, and then people start to bid on him, and then so people start to lose, so I can give me better chances towards the end. So that's the way it works. So I'm gonna be honest with you, just what I usually do most of the time. Like I'll put like CD Lamb out there. I'm not gonna draft CD Lamb. I ain't drafting no Cowboys. I don't care. So I put CD Lamb out there. Hope somebody like, oh yeah, he's gonna have a good season, which he might have a good season. Him and George Pickens. So I'll throw those guys out there, and then somebody pays $60 for them, right? And I'll bid up. I go high. I go make them pay a lot. I keep bidding, and then I have a stopping point, and I'll be like, okay, because if I get him for cheap, cool. But if I make them pay $60 for him, now they down to $200. They only got one player, so it's kind of fun that way, guys. It's an exciting draft way we do. We've been doing it probably now for like 8 years. I think I don't won it 3 times in 8 years. So, yep. You say you got to play some defense and fantasy, so it's competitive. Yes, it's competitive. And what we used to do, we got this donkey as a trophy. So you be the donkey of the year, right? And we get that out if you come in last, right? So it's fun, guys. Just something to do, kind of keep you, even though you're gonna watch the NFL games anyway. But it's kind of to see what your guys that you pick, what kind of points you give you, man. It was 1 year that I played, and it was on a Monday Night Football, and I needed 7 points from my receiver. He got 6. I watched the whole game, and I was like, "Throw him the ball one more time." They would not throw him the ball, man. I'm telling you, that's like the worst because you're looking at the player, and I'm like, he needs 7 points, man, and like he didn't get no points in that game, and he got 6 points, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like, come on, like so. Yeah, those weeks when you lose that close, it sucks. And then you have a game where the guy on the other team, he got a player that don't never do anything. They have a breakout game, and he's like, man, what the heck? Where did that come from? So it's fantasy is good, right? You know, a lot of people play the other kind of fantasy too, with the money, right? With the like DraftKings and stuff like that. That's that could be nerve wracking too. So, but you just don't know. Um, I think one year we picked Saquon Barkley, and back to back years Saquon Barkley. And this was with the Giants. He got hurt back to back years, right? So I decided not to pick Saquon Barkley anymore. And then what did he do last year? He only go for 2,000 yards. So you never know what's gonna happen through these years. So that's what it's all about. I had karma last year. I can tell you how it was watch the Saints game or keep up with their scores. I know, man. I can't tell you this. One year, and I can't believe I did it. I really did it. I picked Drew Brees as my quarterback one year, and I won. I won the league. Can you believe that crap? And I went. I decided to go with my head instead of my heart because I did not want to pick Drew Brees because he was Saints. I did not want to pick him, but I was like, you know what? He's a good quarterback. He always put up 5,000 yards a year, right? I'm gonna pick Drew Brees, and I won, man. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I won the fantasy football league with the New Orleans Saints. Sure did. So, well, anyway, guys, let me get up out of here. I gotta get ready for the draft. Let me know what you think about the 53-man roster, the initial. Let me know what you think about roster cuts. What surprises that you saw, and do you think that the Atlanta Falcons going to actually go out and pick up another offensive lineman to make sure that we should be good this year after losing Caleb McGarry? All right. So there you have it, guys. This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.